Thank you for joining us on Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country, presented by Citi. I'm Sam Kimball from Crush Wine Experiences, and today we are going to Sonoma County in California, in Northern California, known for its Sonoma Valley wine region, as well as notable winemaking areas such as Dry Creek, Alexander Valley, Russian River. Sonoma is an amazing place. It's coastal. It borders the Pacific Ocean, so it has a great degree of climatic variation and numerous microclimates. Key determining factors for the local climate are proximity to that ocean shore, the elevation, and the presence of elevation, hills, mountains, etc., to the east and the west. So real quick, I'm going to show in my background here a map of where we're headed very briefly. So if you see where it has Santa Rosa there, north of San Francisco, we're up in that area. Marin County is just north of the city, much smaller in geographic footprint. And we're up in Sonoma County, which has got that great coastline with the Pacific. Absolutely magical place and a fantastic wine growing region. We are headed to Peter Paul Wines, which is headquartered in Santa Rosa, but you'll learn more about it. They have kind of a distributed business model where they're pulling grapes and fruit from all of the best vineyards in the area. Peter Paul is no ordinary winery. It has garnered big time critical acclaim, including twice, not once, twice being named one of the year's best U.S. Cabernets by Wine and Spirits magazine. And the winery's calling card is very simple. Their magic, their secret sauce is they produce quality, not quantity. They produce less than 2,000 cases of wine every year. Their wines showcase that sunny California climate and weather and the fruit grown along the north coast of California, but while retaining the refined elements of each grape's DNA and its European heritage. So very much a vinifera winery in terms of the grapes and the selections. The wines it really shows in the wines. If you've had their wines, if you haven't, we're going to talk about them. Hopefully they'll sound interesting. You might try them. We have the opportunity to get them tonight. But the structure, the balance of the fruit, and it hits the sweet spot and the ripeness without confection. So these are really finely crafted wines. And it's really all about quality and not quantity. To learn all about Peter Paul Wines, you can visit peterpaulwines.com, just like it sounds. peterpaulwines.com, and you'll learn a lot about it. It's a very interesting place, fascinating winemaker, fascinating team members, one of whom is joining us tonight, and it's going to be a special conversation. So I want to welcome everybody and thank you guys for tuning in. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have along the way. Please interrupt us. My guest and I want to be interrupted and answer questions and field comments and feedback from you as we go. And also use the chat for that if you would. And if you would right now, hit the chat and let us know where in the world you are tuning in from. It's fascinating for us to see. I see. Well, we have New Jersey and Long Island in the house. Hey, Mark. Hey, Nancy. Good to see you guys again. And Jackie, oh my goodness, Jackie from Florida. Hey, Jackie. Great to see everybody. Do hit the chat. Let us know that you're there and that you're kicking and you're alive and where you're at. All right. So without further ado, it is my pleasure today to host the brand ambassador and sommelier at Peter Paul Wines, Megan Vergara. Megan is a certified sommelier, and you'll find out she's more than a sommelier with over 15 years experience working in some of the best and most world-class culinary and wine markets and regions such as New York City and Napa Valley. And she's had extensive training as a sommelier. and tenure at some of the nation's top restaurants, where she's learned from the best of the best. And she has the distinct privilege and pleasure of working with one of the best of the best, the winemaker, who you'll hear more about at Peter Paul Wines. So I just want to give a warm welcome to Megan. It is great having you with us today.
Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's such a pleasure. And hello and welcome to everybody joining us. I'm Megan. And just to echo what you said, Sam, please ask questions. I love to interact. And no question is a silly question. I want to hear all that you guys want to know about Peter Paul Wines and about our region of winemaking here in Northern California.
Absolutely. Well, I will be the head of the Department of Silly and Stupid Questions, Megan. So ready. I do want to say that for everybody watching, I want to share the privilege and the pleasure that I'm experiencing tonight, having Megan with us, because she literally has just come from, she and the winemaker at Peter Paul have organized a very major conference in California around wine and winemaking, and none other than panelists like Eric Asimov from the New York Times, and some really major people who have been speaking there. And I think the conference is ongoing, isn't it? Or is it over?
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's really close to our heart and our ethos as, vintners, winemakers, sommeliers. So we're all based here in Napa and Sonoma. And so we put together a sustainability conference. Essentially, we're gathering some of the best minds, brightest minds, leaders in wine and sustainability. And yeah, we had Eric Asimov speak yesterday. We had Esther Mobley from the San Francisco Chronicle, and just all of the superstars of winemaking coming all together in one place to talk about ways that the wine industry can continue to improve their carbon footprint and lower some of our emissions and things like that. So it was a very special day, but it is ongoing. It actually will be a series of events that runs until June 23rd.
So great. And I mean, I want to poll the group briefly. I don't know if what shows people watch on TV, but I'm sure that there are people watching, if not all of you, who saw the 60 Minutes segment in the last year that came out about how climate change has so substantially impacted the French wine industry, which is obviously a huge world player. And things are changing in how climate regionally in Europe it works, such that they're having all these problems. And there's sections of England which are becoming hotspots of great winemaking, because whereas it used to rain all the time in those parts of England,
it's cold, and now they can make wine. Yeah,
it's warmer. The terroir is actually pretty good, and there's not as much rain. Yeah. So very interesting. And I think that we'll talk more about sustainability and all of the various permutations of it. To start off with, Megan, tell us a little bit more about Peter Paul Wines. It's a very interesting place. I've gotten to know you a little bit, and also Martin Reyes, the winemaker, a little bit. What are the guiding principles that the winery follows and your whole team in order to make such great wines?
I think we really set out to attempt to make just to give you a little bit of background before I answer that. I'm a sommelier, as you mentioned. I've been in the business for forever. So working really one-on-one with people that love wine and listening to what they really want to see in a great wine. And it was such a privilege to finally take that knowledge and turn it into production and winemaking. And Martin is the same. I work with Martin Reyes. He's a master of wine, which is an incredibly hard designation to achieve. It was so difficult just watching him go through that process. One of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And he's actually the first master of wine of Mexican descent ever. So historic figure in the wine business. But I think we both, having this deep love of wine, wanted to craft a brand where we could really create a great wine of high quality and a great price point as well. We often see wines that are very, very expensive. We're like, how do we do this? But how do we do this without it being quite so expensive? But we wanted to really aim for balance and precision. I think, Sam, as a sommelier, like after you do a lot of wine tasting, you have the luxury of getting to do that a lot in life. You're always looking for this great harmonious balance in the wine. You want a really kind of nice flavor up front, but then you want like a great texture mid palate and kind of a unique and interesting finish. So that's really what we're going for in all of the wines, is balance and precision and just the absolute highest quality at the best price point that we can offer.
And so I think that's a great summary of the guiding principles. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, maybe people watching know this. I know it vaguely, but not as well as I should. How many masters of wine are there?
In the US, I think there's only 45. And I think
45 masters of wine out of 330 million people.
yeah, and I think in the whole entire world, there's like somewhere around 300, but that's globally. It's a very hard process to get to. They liken it to getting PhDs and law degrees, and even harder. I mean, it's just incredibly grueling, and you have to have an incredible palate. And when you think about understanding wine, as you and I know, it's such a pursuit of passion and brings so much joy, but it's a lot of knowledge. I mean, you have to understand the entire world and not just about winemaking or not just about the chemistry. You have to understand the cultural implications, the history, the laws, the geography. It's just a lot of it's a lot to take on. And he did
Right.
well. He actually passed it on his first try. Not everybody does.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, having met him, he's a very, very, very smart person and super curious and interesting. Millicent has a question. Does Peter Paul have a tasting room in California?
Oh, great question. We actually do not, and we're going to kind of get to that in the questions. We are what's called a custom crush winery operation. So we do not have a tasting room, but we do host private experiences if you come see us in Napa and Sonoma, whether it's out in the vineyards or things of that nature, but no actual tasting room.
Got it. Yeah, we should talk a little bit when we get into varietals and focus. Talking about the custom crush nature of the Peter Paul Wines operations is, I think, really interesting.
Yeah.
The conference that is ongoing and where you had Eric Asimov speak yesterday, big emphasis on sustainability. Sustainability, tell us more about the Peter Paul mission as it relates to sustainability and where you guys stand on the subject of sustainability.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it all kind of begins with fruit sources. So we source from a couple great vineyards and they are sustainably farmed. So that's kind of number one. We're looking at people that are very mindful of their land and how they're treating it, if they're using chemicals and things like that. So we pick out really amazing, well-farmed, sustainable sites, and they happen to be family owned as well, which is great because something in sustainability is thinking about people and thinking about how people are being treated throughout the process. So that's important to us. We have lightened our glass bottles because we found within the wine industry that heavier bottles, it takes so much more gas and energy to ship them. And though it is often perceived with quality, there is absolutely no reason that a bottle needs to be super heavy other than people earmark it as like, oh, this must be more expensive just because it's heavy. But even Jancis Robinson has been on a mission, who we're actually very blessed to know, and she's been very supportive of the brand and of this mission, but she herself keeps talking about that as well, like the bottles don't need to be so heavy and you can reduce your emissions. I think it's up to about 20% by just lightening your glass. So that is what we did.
One thing, 20% reduction in emission and carbon through lightening your glass.
Think about it, because so much of it is production of the glass, the heaviness of it. So just think about all the gas that it takes and space as well, things like that. And the more you have to truck and the heavier it is, the kind of higher your emissions go. So lightening your glass is a very easy thing wineries can do.
Tell everybody who Jancis Robinson is.
Jancis Robinson is a master of wine, and she's actually based in Great Britain, and she is kind of also a leader and one of the first of our kind. She was one of the first women to really take on the role and do really well, but she's just a prolific writer and wine educator and speaker and author and one of the leading minds in wine and has been for decades.
I'm putting her name, hopefully I don't misspell it, in the chat.
It's Jancis. Yeah, you can look her up. She's got a great website you can go to learn more, and just tons of materials to look into.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wine is infinite. You can never know enough.
I agree. It's part of the journey, part of the fun.
So what else on the sustainability front?
We got rid of our foil. And this is like kind of a new thing for a lot of consumers. People are like, foil, you don't need foil. And you don't. Foil is essentially trash. It's pretty, it's decorative, and it's one of those things that you classically see, but it takes a lot to produce foil, and a lot of it is produced overseas. So you then have the manufacturing of it, the shipping of it, and then it's just trash. Like a lot of the times we can reuse the bottles, and we do for various things, but the foil is just generally straight trash. There is some options now we're seeing where if it's tin, you can recycle it. So, you know, we're kind of looking into that. But we've actually, I brought this bottle to show you because on our higher end offerings, we
Mhm.
found a sustainably produced soft wax, and it's produced in California. So it's not shipped very far, it's just short distance to us. And you can, I should have grabbed my wine key. It's soft. It's not the kind of wax you have to hack at. You can just go right into it.
Yep.
So it's a more sustainable way to seal your bottles. It's really cool.
Now, so I have with me tonight the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir that we're tasting. The Chardonnay must have been an older bottle because it had the foil still, but I think the
Oh, yes.
new vintages
The new
don't.
vintage is not, yes.
The Pinot Noir had just a little sort of drop of wax
Oh,
on the
yeah.
top of the cork, which was kind of cool. And it actually was soft and very easy to pierce with the corkscrew.
We keep trying to, like I said, I should have, I can't believe I didn't, I've been using my Coravin, but I can show you with the Coravin, it goes, even with the Coravin's delicate needle, it goes straight through. It doesn't even mess up the Coravin. Actually, we're buddies with the guys that produce these, and they were like testing it with us, and they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, that is soft. So yeah, that is one, that's a few different ways. We've actually intentionally tried to reduce some of our travel, because as we all know, as much as we like to do it, travel is a huge kind of thing to consider. So we've
Yep.
been working remotely, and we've been doing a lot of virtual things, which is great. And just analyzing it, you know, do we need to get on an airplane, or is this something we can do, you know, from here? And natural cork. This is a very confusing one for people because they often are like, oh, plastic caps, aren't those better? Because you know, natural cork is the way to go. Cork is regenerative, and not only that, the cork forests are actually huge in carbon sequestration, and they provide habitats for all these rare species in Portugal. So they can be composted. You can compost your corks. You can just throw them in your compost bin. They're wood. They just break down. They're amazing. And as many of you may or may not know, cork, you don't cut down the tree. You just kind of shave off a layer of it, and it actually, the tree lives for hundreds of years. It's incredible. And so then that forest is providing fresh air and doing all these great things. And so honestly, is cork is the way to go.
That is, as Elizabeth just pointed out, we just have a fun fact. Cork is compostable.
Cork is compostable. Yes,
And
absolutely.
Nancy, yes, you start composting.
Yeah. And oh, just another quick note. Sorry, you guys, I will geek out on sustainability. We can get back to the one in a minute. So you got to stop me, Sam. But we got to tour the recycling facility because, again, we really mean to be intentional producers and good, because we were like, okay, let's investigate glass, because I'm sure you've heard there's all these alternative packaging options now. But direct from the recycling facilities director, glass is great. They can actually break it down really well. They can create something called cullet, and it gets recycled. And here in California, the Gallo family owns a plant where they take all that and they make bottles, and then they just come back to us. It's awesome.
Interesting. Very interesting.
The wine industry is very aware, and we're attempting to do all these things to be more forward thinking here.
So some of us can't help but notice the beautiful scenery in your background. Where does this broadcast find you, Megan?
Oh, thank you so much. So this is actually my home. I live in Calistoga. I was going to say, send me a little message if you've ever had the joy of visiting Calistoga. It's a great little town here in northern Napa Valley. It's the northernmost point of Napa Valley before we start to kind of move into Knights Valley and back into Sonoma. It's actually really neat. It starts to kind of curve into Sonoma just north of us here. But Calistoga is a wonderful wine country town. It is picturesque, quintessential, just a little town that you can ride your bikes everywhere, great restaurants. And I literally live down the street from like 3 famous winemakers. It's pretty cool. Just when I run out of wine, I just go knock on their doors. One of them is like Aaron from Spotswood. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to break out. I have a nice bottle of Spotswood that's been laying down in my wine fridge for about 7 years. So I think it's time, maybe.
Oh yeah, I bet that would be showing beautifully right now. So.
This is probably my East Coast ignorance, but to me, Calistoga, which I have visited, is like the sort of unspoiled part of Napa County, Napa Valley.
I'm obviously biased living here, but I very much agree. Yountville and St. Helena are beautiful. They absolutely are, and you should stay there if you visit, but they've become tourist hubs. So it is a very touristy area for sure. Whereas, I mean, people live there and they're very happy and they love it, but Yountville really still is a old school kind of neighborhood, but with all of the wine country joy and trimmings that you would love to see. So it's a great
And
place.
it also gets quite mountainous up by Calistoga there.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
point. Yeah. So, oh, we should have gotten a map, but Calistoga, everything comes. So Napa Valley is a valley, obviously, with the mountains running north to south. We have the Mayacamas, and then we have the Vaca Range, but it comes to an apex. It doesn't
Mhm.
stay like this, and Calistoga sits like right at that apex. So I
Yeah.
stand outside and I'm surrounded by mountains.
What's the elevation there?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm where we are, we're flat. It is still valley
Yep.
flatness. So, but you can get pretty high. I think you can get up to 700-800 feet, like if you go on one of the hikes. And we have Mount St. Helena right behind us. And I'm not sure what the elevation is there, but I'd imagine it's pretty big.
Very cool. Very cool. So you at Peter Paul, you have a small but dedicated team. You are a so-called custom crush operation as a winery.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about what is that and what does that mean and what are the benefits of being custom crush?
Oh, thank you. That's a good one. And it's confusing because a lot of people just when they picture a winery, they picture the big, classic stone building winery. So one of the ways that we thought we could offer really high quality wines, and we're talking high quality, like our vineyard sources, we share with William Sellium, we share with Kistler, we share with Consgard, we share with some of the top names in the business. But you'll quickly notice that our prices do not reflect that, but it is the same vineyard source and it is the same fruit. So close to the same wine. But the way that we are able to offer these great wines, but not at such an elevated price point, is being a custom crush winery. So essentially, that means we source fruit from all these great vineyard sites that Martin and I have great relationships with, and we make it at a facility, what's called a custom crush facility. So, and that's also very sustainable as well. So a winery has all this great equipment and it's very expensive and it uses a lot of energy and it's just, they only need it for a short amount of time during harvest. So there are facilities where we can all collaborate and we become this big, beautiful collaboration of brands that come together and we share all of these winemaking things that we use. We share the tanks, we share all kinds of stuff to produce the wines, and that's called custom crush. But what it does is it saves us a lot of overhead that we then in turn can save for the consumer. So it's not
Yep.
marked up in the bottle. We're able to just give you really great wine and really great, vineyard sources for probably half of the cost because we don't have all of that kind of building expense, as it were.
Yep. No, that's a great explanation. And some of the most innovative and terrific wineries are custom crush.
They
It's a
are.
little known fact.
It is, yeah. And Sam, I gotta tell you, like, it's kind of cool because, like, the custom crush facility we work out of, we have the winemaker from Screaming Eagle who's always there running around hanging out because he
Ah,
makes his little side project there. So we'll be working on the wines and we'll be like, oh, hey, Nick, what do you think? Will you taste this? Is this good? Should we do like it's just neat
yeah.
because we have like these great minds that hang out there and it winds up being this sort of incredible collective of winemakers all in the same room. It's neat.
We have our first stupid wine question of the night.
Okay.
Is Screaming Eagle still considered like a pillar of unbelievable quality, just extraordinary wine and carrying the prices to support that?
Yes, it is. And the wines are phenomenal. And where they sit in Rutherford is a heralded spot. It is holy ground here in Napa Valley. I'm actually friends with the Morsolis that their land is adjacent to that spot. And there really is something very unique about that soil in that spot in particular. What you mentioned about microclimates here in Napa Valley is very true. We have geologically, I think very interesting things going on. Mount St. Helena behind me erupted, a couple million years ago, and it dispersed all of this interesting sediment and soil all around. But that particular spot, it sits up against the benchlands, but it's in Rutherford, and Rutherford's by and large, considered to be one of the best areas of Napa Valley
Yeah.
because it gets a lot of sunshine, but it also gets cooling influences. But there's a slight elevation right up against the benchlands there. So it is a very special site, and they have been crafting it. And I think one of the things that makes it special is obviously they never have to worry about everything they do is at the highest possible execution level because obviously price or they're never concerned about financial anything, so they're just at the very top of their game doing everything at like optimal level for sure. However, I will say if you have friends in the wine business and you have a great person like Sam leading you through, there are like fun little tricks in the business to know like So that's a vineyard that's charging $2,000 for something, but right here is a vineyard that's charging 200.
Next
Interesting.
door.
Yeah.
Yeah, next door.
Yeah. Huh. So,
We've actually had on this show over the last couple of years, we've had one or two producers that are adjacent to hallowed Napa ground.
yes.
And one of them might have been next to Screaming Eagle. I don't remember exactly, but you just touched on something really interesting. And that is that if you can sort of get the information, it turns out that the Smith winery is 20 their grapes grow 20 yards away from the Screaming Eagle wines.
Yeah.
And the Smith wines are not $1,000 or $2,000 a bottle. They're
because they don't have the
35.
reputation and yeah, they don't have the wait list and yeah. all of that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We got to keep to our promises. Questions on the fly. Couple of questions from Bruce. One, have you performed any studies or are there any studies on the impact/increase of oxygen transfer without the bottle foil on bottles?
Oh, good question. So it's funny that my boyfriend is he works at Cake Bread and he would actually just sent me a bunch of information about that. He's like, so historically the FDA thought that there had to be foil on top of that's kind of an old law essentially. And one of the biggest reasons they thought that there was like something to worry about there with oxygen transfer, but no, we have not seen any issues whatsoever with it. I think there's been an improvement with quality production of cork, et cetera, et cetera. So absolutely not. And honestly, most consumers open a bottle of wine and drink it within 30 minutes of purchasing it is the study that we've found. So great question, but no, we have not. And cork is not airtight. That's the other thing.
Yeah, no, cork lets air in.
Oxygen, or I'm sorry, foil. Foil is not like a seal per se. It looks like it is, but it is not a hermetic seal. Oxygen still gets in through foil as well.
Exactly.
Great question.
Bruce has another question. Did you just get a new AVA, which stands for American Viticultural Area, on the coast?
We did. We just got it is the Sonoma Coast AVA and it's brand new. And it's like a tiny region that's like much, much colder. And well, also an effect of possible climate warming. Usually the coast is way too cold, way too wet to grow grapes unless they're at a higher elevation. But yes, we did.
Any impact on your wine with the Sonoma Coast AVA coming in online?
No, but other than we would love to go check it out. And
yeah. So you're not currently using grapes or fruit from there.
Yeah, yep. However, we love the area and that would be probably something we would look to do.
All right, last question. Listen, I could ask you questions like this, and I'm sure people watching could all night. Megan, it's so great to get the information you have. I'm going to ask you one last question. Let's jump into tasting some wine. What are the grape varietals you at Peter Paul Wines are focused on?
Yes. So we make wines from Sonoma, from Russian River and Sonoma Coast areas, and Petaluma Gap as well, which is a very unique and interesting area. Sonoma is huge. Sonoma is roughly 3 times the size of Napa Valley, just to give some perspective. So there's incredible diversity with what you can do in Sonoma, but we tend to lean more towards Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Sonoma. And we pick the regions that produce famous, stellar, amazing, incredible grapes. So we really lean into Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from the Sonoma side. From Napa, we make a Cabernet, classic Cabernet, and we make a Bordeaux style blend, which is called the Master's Blend, which is a nod to Martin Reyes achieving his Master of Wine.
Excellent. I love that. All right. So what wines are we tasting today? I think we're doing the Sonoma Coast Chardonnay, the Russian River Pinot Noir. Is that right?
Yes. Well, it's actually, the Pinot Noir is a blend. It's a blend of
combination.
And fruit from the Petaluma Gap as well, which is in that picture behind you where Martin and the vineyard owner are standing.
And then last but not least, the Peter Paul Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon 2019. And for everyone hanging out with us and watching, if I seem like I'm oohing and ahhing a lot over the first two, it's because I have those with me right now. But sadly, I didn't get the Cabernet Sauvignon quite in time. So if I'm not oohing and ahhing over that, it's not because I don't think the world of it. It's just I'm not have it in my glass. All right, so let's start with the Chardonnay. How's it made? What sort of Chardonnay is this?
So we're Chardonnay. we want to go for, we understand that Chardonnay is so well loved and so classic, but us being who we are, again, sommelier and a master of wine, we're always very concerned about this great kind of elevated, lifted sense to the wine. And that usually, it's funny how we use certain fancy words to describe things like that, just means it's kind of brighter. It's sort of got a nice acidity to it. There's sort of this taut kind of refreshing citrus thing that you get right away from the Chardonnay, but we do not necessarily shy away from the fact that these are California grapes. We often talk about in our marketing and in our branding that like we are both so inspired by what we learned from studying European winemaking and European grape varietals and how things are done in Burgundy essentially. And we attempt to emulate that balance while firmly recognizing that we live in California and it's sunny and beautiful and we have this beautiful ripe fruit to work with. So our goal is always to find that balance in the wine, but also let the California grapes shine to a degree. So this is a little bit of neutral oak and a little bit of new oak. It's about 50-50, and we're very mindful of our oak use with Chardonnay. And it does go through malolactic fermentation, so you do get a little bit of the creaminess, but we really strive to keep that bright citrus acidity and kind of keep this beautiful balance in the wine. So you get citrus, you get apple to the wine, and just really, we're going for a lovely texture. Again, that kind of bright acidity up front and kind of nice, creamy, smooth finish on the back palate.
It's delicious. I will say, you can barely tell that it's had any oak contact. It's really the oak is super subtle. And
we
I
actually
don't think I've ever had,
ferment a little bit in oak because we personally feel that when you are barrel fermenting, and we're trying to set up some research around this, but that it integrates better. Which is a very scientific explanation as to why. Typically people ferment in the big stainless steel, fermenters, and then they put it in barrel. So we just do a medium toast. And again, that balance between neutral oak and full on brand new oak. Neutral being that the barrels have been used for several years, so they don't have a big toast on the inside. We think that by barrel fermenting, it just integrates really nicely and it doesn't like stand out. Like sometimes when you taste a Chardonnay, it's like fruit, oak, and you're like, whoa, it's a lot.
Food, oak. Okay, next.
Yeah, so we're
no, it's really subtle. And the other thing that's interesting, I don't know if this is sort of a silly observation or comment, but I'm constantly around people when we're doing wine experiences or tours or tastings who say, I don't do any oak aged or any white wine or Chardonnay that's had been in oak. I like stainless steel, and stainless steel is very popular. It's very, much in the trend. But I like both styles myself. This is a wine that I would actually challenge people who only love stainless steel fermented Chardonnay to taste this and actually blind test it and actually say whether they thought it had seen oak.
That would
I bet you some people would say, no, this is stainless steel. It's the brightness and the acidity, the refreshing acidity in this make it seem like there's no oak aging whatsoever.
Well, we did actually introduce this. We have a stainless steel barrel now that we use. It's called a Mueller. So we actually added, we like to find that balance, like I mentioned. So we do one barrel like that, which is nice, and kind of bring it back in and blend it all together, which is cool. But thank you. That's quite the compliment. It is the trend. Less oak is a great trend for people, but I don't think oak should be villainized. It's actually considered to be a wonderful kind of winemaking accoutrement, if you will. Always think of oak as like salt and pepper is to food. When you're thinking about oak in a wine, you want to think about it as like a way to sort of enhance a wine, but never to overpower it. But I think often people mistake malolactic fermentation too for oak. Malolactic fermentation is that conversion of acidity into a really creamy, buttery type of acidity. And I think that can be overwhelming to the palate and dominating too. So malolactic plus a lot of oak, and you're like, whoa. But well integrated, balanced oak is a nice thing.
Then you get a butter bomb.
Yeah.
Really nice wine. What cheese would you pair this with?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'm on this big kick. I'm not sure if I hope you guys have it on the East Coast, but there's a cheese here called Euphoria, and it's an aged Gouda, and it's got little salt crystals in it, and that is 100% what I would pair with this because it can. I think the acidity would go really, really nicely with that, and then the salt crystals would kind of bring your palate up, and just it's a great cheese.
That sounds great. I actually just paired it with a triple creme brie.
Oh,
That's
how was that?
me. It was great.
Good.
Great. Because then that actually brings out a little of the softness from the mallow and the secondary fermentation.
Nice.
It's wine. So I like that.
I think the
All right.
brie is never a bad. It's always
Yeah,
like
tough.
a good one.
Triple creme brie tends to pair with everything.
Yeah, we joke a lot in the wine business too about that. People are like, okay, specific cheese. And honestly, it's like most cheese and most wine, except for blue cheese.
Yep.
That'll mess you up. Be careful with blue cheese. Yeah.
Yep. Mark asks, do you use French oak to keep
Yes.
it more subtle, or did you say, and I missed it? I think
Oh,
French. Yeah.
yeah, we do use French oak. And that's a stylistic choice for sure. We've noticed it's the grain and the barrels essentially, but in French oak just by and large tends to have a more subtle kind of character that it imparts. French oak, you get nice vanilla notes and you get things that are a little more gentle, whereas American oak has sort of a more powerful flavor profile where you'll get a more like coconut or even bigger tobacco notes. And
Mhm.
we've just found with the balance and delicacy of our wine that it can't, it's not quite the right profile for us. But there are some great producers here in Napa Valley that use American oak and do so very, very well, like Silver Oak. They're
Yeah.
incredible. And ZD Wines. I was shocked when I went there tasting the other day. I was like, wow, you guys are doing a great job with your American oak. Good work.
How does Hungarian oak compare?
So I personally have not worked with it much, but I have tasted a few wines and I find it to be a very neutral feeling, which I actually enjoy. I feel the same about acacia a lot. Some winemakers like to use either Hungarian oak or acacia. And um, I found that they do a great job. Oak does more than just flavor a wine. It can also soften the texture of a wine, and it also provides oxidation, which softens at first when a wine is first made, it's got really bright acidity, and then you put it in oak and it can kind of integrate, and the acidity essentially changes naturally without mallow per se. But I found Hungarian oak does a really good job of sort of softening the wine without imparting too much flavor. So it's something that's an interesting thing to look into, but it doesn't add anything per se. And Napa wines and Sonoma wines are big enough in character that we feel French oak is the right fit because it can add just
Yeah.
that little je ne sais quoi to the wine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We have so much that you're tasting so much California sunshine in that fruit from California.
Yeah. I
The
think if
subtlety of France. Yeah.
we're
I
making like a
agree.
really delicate like Albarino or chocolate or something from Spain, I'd probably either do a stainless steel barrel or Hungarian oak because it's so delicate that it can't or wouldn't benefit from anything like that. But a Chardonnay from Sonoma, it's got body
Yeah,
to that texture.
absolutely.
It can take a little bit of vanilla.
All right. Shall we move on to the Russian River slash Sonoma Pinot Noir?
Yep. Okay, so this wine, we're very proud of our Pinot Noir. We love Pinot Noir again in this pursuit of balance that we strive for in this production style. And again, being Somm and MW, Pinot Noir is always a wonderful place to enjoy wine. It is balanced, but it has fruit and character to it. The pairing options with Pinot Noir are very vast and versatile. We joke a lot. We're like, when in doubt, bring a bottle of Pinot Noir to something like that's probably going to pair with a wide range of things, which is really nice. But Pinot Noir can often be mismade as well. So it's a joy and a privilege to attempt to make what we hope is great Pinot Noir. And that all starts with picking great vineyard sites. So I don't know if you have the pictures, but we can show you one of them. The one behind you is called Terra de Primicio, and that's in Petaluma Gap in Sonoma. So the Pinot Noir we're drinking right now, it's called Gravenstein Highway, and it's a blend of Russian River Valley fruit, which is considered the heart of Sonoma. And it's even kind of shaped like a heart on the map if you look at it. It's cool. And Russian River Valley is very famous for their Pinot Noirs and Chardonnay. And then we blend that with a little bit of fruit from this Terra de Primicio vineyard. And that's where Martin and Diana, the owner, are standing right now. The Petaluma Gap is a little bit cooler and windier, and they have like a little bit of a rolling elevation, as you can see. So that brings to the wine a little bit of structure on the back end, a little bit of power. There is it's called the Petaluma Gap because it's a wind gap it pulls in cool breezes from the Pacific Ocean and winds, which is really nice. But because of those winds, the grape skins get just ever so slightly thicker than Pinot Noir from other areas. But that gives them a little bit of tannin and power that we love. So we blend some of that fruit into the site that we use for the Russian River fruit. And Russian River is just famous the world over for just being plush and showy and delicious. And it's got kind of Bing cherry notes to it and a little bit of lavender and black tea notes. And we think it's kind of a neat combination to balance that kind of plush, delicious, rich character of Russian River with kind of that backbone and strength of the fruit character from the Terra de Promicio vineyard in Petaluma Gap. And just to give a little background on these vineyards, the vineyard that Martin is standing in there, that we share that with Williams Sellium, we share that with Kistler, we share that with some of the top names in the business. But again, because we don't have that massive overhead of the production facility, we're able to offer this wine at a much reduced price. So.
And this is the wine we're talking about here. Yeah. So the Gravenstein Highway, Sonoma coast.
Yep. So we call it Gravenstein Highway because the Gravenstein Highway runs from Russian River to the coast. So it connects all of those areas essentially. And before Sonoma was famous for grape growing, they were famous for apples, Gravenstein apples.
This is like a really delicate, the bouquet on this is quite amazing. I'm actually pairing it with a Taleggio cheese.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that a lot.
I mean, it's just so balanced. I'm speechless. The balance itself alone is wonderful. It's from the beginning to the finish. And you don't get that sort of harshness that you sometimes get, certainly with bigger red wines, but it has medium body, and kind of that really nice red fruit notes, but the smoothness and the balance is really extraordinary.
Thank you so much. It's so funny. I mean, when you go from the Somm side of things to the production side of things, I started out using really complicated wine words, but now when somebody tells me something is smooth that I had a hand in producing, I'm like, thank you, because texture is everything in wine. How your mouth perceives it, how the finish, how you feel, that's everything. So it's one of the best words in the business, to be honest. It's
I mean, to me, like, smooth and balance is more of a technical wine industry word, but they're the same things. The smoothness and the balance imparts the smooth sensation of this wine. It's what makes it possible, basically. Really, really, really nice. By the way, I was remiss when we were looking at the Chardonnay. Let me put that up just so people can see. I mean, these are very accessibly priced wines, which is, I think, important to point out. It's really what got me interested in the wine business years ago, was finding great wines that were accessible to, everyday wine drinkers. And so I want to show the Chardonnay as well. The Chardonnay is $27 on peterpaulwines.com.
These sources that we get the wines from would be double, like, in price, which is nice. So, and then that was really the kind of driving ethos behind what Martin and I wanted to do, and continue to create great brand that people can enjoy and find accessible.
How long have you been?
As winemakers and vintners and somms, we we don't always buy the $300 bottle of wine either. We love to know about these little hidden gems of things.
Well, it's funny, in our store in Long Island, what we love are these finds, these wines that they taste like they could be $100 or more, but they're accessibly priced. They're $25, they're $30, they're $35.
Yeah.
And that's a sustainable model.
Absolutely.
There is an economy of people who can, the $100 and $100+ bottles of wine are sort of everyday wines. I'm not part of that economy, but one day maybe. But the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of people who are interested in great values and finds, and they have palates that are looking for wonderful wine. Nancy, you should try the Pinot Noir. It's spectacular. By the way, since you're nearby, we can ship it to you from Greenport very affordably. So
Very
now we're gonna,
amazed at your shipping price. It's incredible. I was
Uh,
like, wow. Very
I will put it up. I'll briefly, just so anybody who's New York based, New York Metro, feel free to access the wines at northforkcrush.com, which is, hold on one second here. I put it up in my background, but let me share it. Here it is. So if you're not in New York, absolutely order from peterpaulwines.com. But if you're in the New York Metro, we can help you with shippings direct from our store, which is a strategic partner store. It's not part of Crush Wine Experiences, but we have a really good local shipper. So whether you order 1 bottle or 12 bottles, the shipping cost is $12.50.
I can't emphasize as a producer what a great price that is.
Yeah, well, it's
Shipping is
if,
gotten expensive, yeah.
if you're in Suffolk or Nassau counties or most of the 5 boroughs, we can do that. So anyway, so we're going to talk about the Cabernet Sauvignon,
Yes.
which
going-
has won all kinds of awards. And I'm excited to hear about it.
So we're going from Sonoma now back into Napa, and Napa is cab country. We are all cab all day here, and we are famous the world over for making some outstanding Cabernet, some of which we discussed earlier, like Spotswood and Screaming Eagle and things like that, that have really put us on the map and made us quite famous for what we do here. So Martin and I both being in the business, we're very lucky to have these great relationships where these people we wind up becoming dear friends. And what's great is, as famous as Napa Valley is, it's still very much a small town, and it's still very much about farming and about the love of the land. So we've been able to craft a beautiful Cabernet with these wonderful by sourcing fruit from some of the most incredible growers here. So this particular Cabernet, the 19, and a lot of it is very heavily Rutherford based. And we were just discussing Rutherford and its significance to Napa Valley. So Rutherford has a beautiful character, and some of Napa Valley's most famous wines come from this particular appellation. And there's something famous called the Rutherford Dust. Sam, you've probably heard of this.
Yes.
And I think you can taste it a little bit in this wine, which is really nice. So Great Vineyard Sources, we were able to source fruit from largely Rutherford in this offering, and also St. Helena, which is just north of Rutherford and in between Calistoga and heading south. So St. Helena is like so I'm at the top of the valley here in Calistoga. St. Helena is the next town down, and then Rutherford. So beautiful Cabernet, balanced structure, but all of that kind of luxury that you're expecting in a Cabernet, but for a great price point at $48. So I think let's taste. Let's see what we got here. It changes, wine evolves. So we have our classic tasting notes for it, but I always like to taste it fresh alongside people and be like, it's showing this today. Yeah, definitely a lot of kind of black currant, black cherry notes. Just gonna yeah, a little bit of the kind of mocha. So to me, Rutherford has something that's famous called Rutherford Dust, and that essentially means, it's a complicated thing and everybody has a different definition for it, but you'll hear it a lot as you journey on in wine, and especially Cabernet drinking. There is a beautiful fineness to the tannin, to the way that you kind of get that last sip of it as it's going down. And it's almost this kind of like cacao, like cocoa, like mocha, chocolatey thing that happens. So you get this beautiful kind of black fruit character up front, then a nice little kind of hit of acidity in the palate, and then you get this really fine, smooth, rich kind of cocoa tannin going down, which is really nice, and a little bit of sweet tobacco.
Yeah, and for this price point, a Napa Cab, I mean, Napa Cabs are, with the quality of fruit of this wine, are usually quite pricey.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting living here and watching it just go up and up, and we question whether or not that's a sustainable business model, but we'll see. They seem to be selling them. So,
It's still going.
yeah.
It's still going.
I
But
think
I
there's a
think,
little bit of pushback starting to occur there where people are like, wow, let's figure out how to keep it better prices. So we're proud that we were able to, and that's all through beautiful relationships that we have and these great deals and being a custom crush facility, as we mentioned earlier. So
yeah, no, it's very, very interesting.
Sam, did you
What's,
taste it yet? I'm curious what your perception of the oak on this one is.
well, this is the one that I don't have tonight.
Oh, that's right. I'm just teasing you now. I'm so sorry.
Now I feel sad.
So yeah, so this would be a good one if anybody wanted to pick up and was curious about the impacts of oak on Cabernet. The tannin structure in Cabernet is very strong, so it can actually handle a stronger oak regime, and that is what we do. It is all still French oak for this wine, but we do 26 months in about 45% new French oak, and it integrates really nicely, I think, with the Cabernet. So the big tannin in Cabernet can really stand up to that kind of oak aging, and that's actually what kind of brings the wine all together very harmoniously and creates these rich, luxurious flavors.
What's the alcohol by volume content percentage on the Cabernet?
It's 14.5, I believe.
On the cab?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's quite light, actually.
Oh, no, we got it marked at 15 on the bottle.
15. Okay. So the Chardonnay was 14. The
Mhm.
Pinot Noir is 14.5. And
Yeah.
this is 15, which makes sense,
Mhm.
you know.
And that's something discussing sustainability and climate change. It's always going to be a little bit tricky, and that we believe in being very honest about. Alcohol percentages are a direct correlation to the bricks at harvest, the sugars in the wine, essentially. So we get ripe fruit here. It's sunny, it's warm, and that's something that's going to be present. I mean, you don't want to see it go too far above 15. But it's actually kind of an interesting thing with something like 14.5, 15% alcohol, because it creates a very silky mouthfeel. So it's kind of it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's villainized if it's too high, and it shouldn't be like 16, 17. That's too much. That's crazy. It'll burn. But there's like a glycerol, like delicious, like smooth, silky thing that happens right at like 14.5 that we love. So.
No, I can't wait to try that wine. There's something magical about, and also the fact that you guys are custom crush. I mean, you're really curating the fruit selection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
for
we
that
put all of our
wine.
effort into great sources and not some of the other expenses that would come. So that's how we're able to offer a Rutherford Cabernet at this price.
Yeah, no, I think that is a very that's a great opportunity for people who like a really good cab, which I do.
Sam,
So
I do want to see if you want to do another one, because my little pet project is a
oh
rosé
yes.
that
So
I made.
let me interrupt you.
Do another one and taste rosé.
Yes. So by the way, so for anybody watching, Megan is not just a sommelier, she's also a winemaker, and she's doing some really cool things, starting with a rosé, moving into sparkling selections. So we'll come back and we'll do a session on your wines.
That would be great. That'd be
So
great.
which
Well,
are made in conjunction or in
Yes,
collaboration.
yeah,
with Peter Paul.
absolutely. I make the
Yeah.
wine at the same facility, and Martin has overseen and helped with every step of the process for me. So yeah. And it's kind of fun because Peter Paul doesn't make a sparkling wine or rosé. So we just see it as sort of an extension of the family.
That's awesome. Well, that would be great. I agree, Nancy. We will be putting that in the calendar very soon, and diving into the great wines you're making. Thank you so much for doing this. It's great to hang out with you, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yes, thank you for your questions, everyone. Follow us at Peter Paul Wines, or follow me at M Vino Rosé. I would love to stay connected with you. And Sam, I just want to thank you. It's been brilliant talking to you. What a great mind and wine we have here.
I thank you, and after having hung out with such august individuals as Eric Asimov yesterday, that you would tolerate me is very kind. So
Keep doing what you're doing. This is a great platform. So hopefully we'll be on again.
Yes, we will definitely. All right, guys, have a great night, everybody. Take care
Bye.
now. Thanks, Megan.